Hello. The doc is in, and welcome back to another chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 236. Alright. I usually read the leaks. As of recent, I've been doing videos on the leaks, mostly because the chapters are too hyped to not talk about before they come out. So we already just kind of discussed what happens. Alright. We don't even really talk about last chapter, honestly. Last chapter, Gojo looked like he was stunting on the boy. He popped that mega purple, the nuke, killed Maruga, got Sukuna looking mad sad. Leaned up against a wall, and he was declared the winner by Kusakabe. We had an argument about it. The shit's over. I was right. Alright? Now, let's get into the chapter, alright? It's gonna make some people feel a certain type of way, so let's go ahead. Alright, so chapter starts off with, let's say, a flashback, right? A quote-unquote flashback, right? Ghetto. What's up? Teen Gojo. No way. Then, we get revealed. It's not a flashback. It's actually I guess you could say a post-mortem soul purgatory combo with the boys. Alright? And basically have Gojo basically kind of getting into like, oh, you know, this is kind of crazy. I hope this is a dream, because I kind of told all my students that, like, oh, you know, when you die alone, yada yada yada, and you're right here. So I mean, that kind of proves that I was lying. And then he's like, oh yeah, you know, this kind of sucks too, because, like, you know, I'm dead and I gotta tell him about his dad, but him is Megami didn't get talk to Megami because he haven't got Megami back, and he never did get tell Megami because Megami never asked, and you know, whatever. But he kind of like reconciles with this idea because he's like, well, you know, I left that to Shoko to kind of handle, so I guess, I mean, that is what it is. And then from there, Keto's like, oh, you know, how's King of Curses? Gojo starts glazing. Oh, if you're a Gojo fan, you hate this so much. Which, to be fair, is an unexpected glaze, but is not unusual. Like I said, there's just a lot to discuss in this chapter. But to quickly dive into this, like all of, I'm gonna try to keep it short. Basically, we have seen that be strong in Jujutsu Kaisen is to be as selfish as fucking possible. So, a lot of the strongest people are not willing to admit the guy they're fighting is strong. It's like when Gojo first encountered Jogo. He treated him like the biggest bitch. And Jogo's very strong. He's above a lot of people, especially in the first half. Well, that's not first half, one time skip, but in the first section of the story before Shibuya, even during Shibuya, he could very easily one-shot so many people. He just coincidentally got in full-fledged fights with the top of the verse, which is why he was generally disrespected, except for in death from Sukuna, who actually are pretty strong, even though you could have gone stronger. Even as you are now, you're pretty decent, right? So the idea that Gojo's quite literally dead is his post-mortem, and he's like, yeah, Sukuna's built different. He was truly someone beyond my strength, which he points out. He's like, hey, even without the 10 shadows, I don't think it was killing Sukuna fans for the last couple of weeks, being like, Sukuna out here still cursed Technique Town, huh? Well, Gojo just put it on the record. He said, maybe I still would have lost if he didn't have the 10 shadows. Maybe. It was definitely a probability thing. He's saying like, 45%, 60%, he might just beat me out. But still glazed. He's basically like, hey, the 10 shadows are not necessary to put me down. And you got Ghetto listening. He's just like, man, it's crazy. And so then we get into like the strongest complex, which is that, like, you know, Gojo gets into the fact that, like, oh, him and Sukuna are kind of the same. They both were the strongest amongst a pool of people who will never ever really realistically ever get close to them. Like, they're basically alone in this world. And so he kind of, feeling sympathy for Sukuna's plight, because it is his own, kind of wanted to reach out to him, and kind of like the thing that Yorozu was saying to Sukuna, where it's basically like, oh, you know, I know you're lonely, by being the strongest. I understand this, and while obviously just based on Gojo's statements in this section / the turnout of this fight, which we'll get to see in like a second, but Sukuna stands above everyone, like totally. So he really understands this whole loneliness idea. And so Gojo kind of like, I wanted to reach him by, basically showing like, oh, you're not alone. I'm strong like you. But in the end, it came down to Sukuna was holding back. He just was objectively stronger. It just, he couldn't quite reach him. He couldn't get Sukuna to really pull out all the stops against him like he would have liked to. But Gojo got his satisfaction. And so the fight ends. And so, Geto's like, hey, congratulations. You went out with a bang. It's pretty nice. And Gojo's like, I am kind of satisfied, but I'm missing a little bit. Just a tiny bit. I would have appreciated if before I went out to fight, you would have been able to pat me on the back. And you can see in this one panel, Gojo kind of, Geto doesn't say anything, but you can see a small tear welling up in him because they were close friends. So even though they end up taking different paths and Nakanjaku, Geto became a fugitive and Gojo had to fight against him, there was still love between them. Pause. Not that kind of love. Brotherly love, where it's like, in a different world and a different place, they would have been locked in together, right? And then Haibara and Nanami appear because it's the Soul Realm, so they kind of just show up. And basically, Gojo's like, oh, I'm so glad I went out with a bang. It would have been cooler than going out from old age or whatever. I really apologize about the background noise. If you guys can hear that, I really apologize. But, right, Nanami's basically like, oh, you sound like an old samurai general. And they basically end up, Haibara, Nanami kind of end up roasting Gojo because Nanami's basically like, oh, I was back in the day before Geto went crazy. I was like, dang, I really wish Gojo would just take care of everything. But then I think about it now, I'm like, it probably would have been a bad idea anyway, because you're just, well, he doesn't say it's a bad idea, but they say that it would have been a good idea to let him, because basically he likes doing this weird murderous shit, and he's basically a hedonist. Right, he says this to his face. Obviously, they're dead, but he just says it to his face. And Haibara's like, oh, you shouldn't say that. I mean, we all know it's true, and we all been thinking it, but come on, man. You're not supposed to say it. And it's just like, you're not helping Haibara. You're not helping. He's positive. Very positive. But that was not helpful. You basically just doubly confirmed that, like, oh yeah, all your friends and family, well, all your friends, I don't know about family, all your friends think you're a sick hedonist who's a psychopath who knows only power. I mean, obviously they care about him, obviously, and everything. But it is interesting to just put that in perspective. Like, oh no, everybody just thinks you're like a sicko who has a problem. But from there, we get them kind of talking about their deaths. Nanami kind of reconciles about his death and like how Haibara kind of showed up at his final moments and kind of helped him like help console him about that time and about this time. And he kind of like, and Nanami kind of not ponders, but kind of mentions the fact like, oh, I used to be someone who's always thinking about the past. So it was interesting that at my final moments, I'm wishing the best for the future, And we get a little bit of an interesting scene, right? Well, not interesting dialogue, rather. And this is when Gojo asks Nanami, like, oh, what would you think about your death? What'd you decide? Whatever. He basically mentions like, oh, Mei mentioned that like, oh, if you want to do something new, you go north. If you want to stay the same, you go south, right? Now, when I first read this, I read it as like, oh, he went to move to Malaysia, yada yada yada. So like maybe she was just referring to like literally him moving after he was done with Jujutsu. But people are taking this as like some kind of soul thing where it's like maybe like a reincarnation or like coming back to your old lot, coming back to like your actual body kind of thing, something along those lines. But we'll have to wait and see. There isn't anything like directly implicated in that as of yet. You get more from the characters. They're all talking. We get to see Principal Masamichi. He's just there, also in his team form, And everybody's smiling, having a good time. You see Rico and the maid from Hidden Inventory. There we go. And so, right, last part before we get to the present day once more. Gojo. Now I'm hoping this isn't a dream. Because remember, initially he's like, oh, I wish this was a dream. But now he's like, dang, it's nice to be surrounded by my friends again in a peaceful setting. Next panel. The boy. He's packed. Blood out the mouth. Body down on the floor. Shit tragic, new paddock. Something something, I'm not a rapper. Now, honestly, we're not even gonna go by panel by panel. Let's just get straight to the point. Gojo's in half, and then he has his arm cut off too. That boy got chopped up. All right, but Sukuna gives us an explanation. How did we get here? We don't get to see the actual cut be dispersed, be given out. We'll talk about how I feel / how the community feels about that in a moment. Was a correct opinion by my statement in a moment, but let's just get the explanation, because this is the big thing. Is this an ass pull? Let's find out. So first, we found out how Maharaga's adaptation works. Effectively, you hit him once, he starts adapting. You hit him again, it adapts faster. He does not stop adapting. There is no complete adaptation. It just keeps going, right? How the best way to think about it is, once you get in a fight with Maharaga, if you hit him one time, it's only a matter of time before you get adapted to. Not a matter of like, oh, I'm measuring out my hits. That is why the one shot is absolutely necessary. Once you've already interacted with him, your clock is ticking, right? So from there, Sukuna basically explains, I was using Maharaga as a role model to learn how to get past infinity. How does that work? Basically, because Maharaga's adaptation keeps adapting once it's adapted to something, like it just keeps going. Once you hit 100%, then it goes 101, 102, etc., etc. So he is basically trying to get Maharaga to adapt in a way that he himself could copy. How is this important? Well, we'll see. Basically, from now on, I'm going to kind of come out of it and I'm just going to talk about it. So what Maharaga did was, at the first time, he was adapting his cursed energy to basically nullify the limitless, right? What this means is that, in essence, you can think of him like a nullifying bubble, is what he was what Maharaga was initially creating for himself, for the unlimited void, limitless, whatever. So he would basically just have any part of his body could just get through it. Not even just oh, those blades need to get through it. No, the whole body could just go through. Like, he himself would have like an aura of just getting through limitless, right? But Sukuna said, I can't copy that, so I want him to try it again. He adapted some more. The second attempt was when we saw him get his arm cut off. Gojo, I mean. What he did, Maharaga basically adapted to space and learned how to cut not through Limitless or Gojo, but learned to cut the entire space in a section or direction. And that would basically, he would cut through space, and that would include Gojo as he's in that space. And then obviously you're cutting space, so you're cutting infinity. Basically, this is a technique, this is a skill that Sukuna could copy, which is why he was excited to see this. And so what he did was that by learning how to cut space, by copying Maharaga's blueprint, he was basically able to cut Gojo through the limitless through his body. I may not be perfectly explaining this, but to put it very succinctly, Sukuna learned how to cut space in a section. And by learning how to cut space in a section, he guarantees that anything in this area is eliminated or sliced. Therefore meaning Gojo being in the area with the ability to cut space, specifically what Gojo manipulates space, he is able to cut through both the Limitless and Gojo all in the same time, right? And from here, after passing, let's say the MAKI, YUTA panel, right, we get to see Gojo. Pieces, he's done, he's cut, it's done. Sukuna even specifies this is a damn near impossible thing to pull off. But with the effective blueprint of Maharaga, something that is perfect at adapting, it happened, right? And then, in similar fashion to Gojo, after the battle's done, he says, "You did well, Gojo Satoru. I won't forget you for as long as I live." You get to see Gojo's dying corpse pull a little smirk. Obviously, he's dead. He's almost dead. If he heard that, he's basically just fading away. But yeah, sad shit. Honestly, Gojo was the GOAT. I know it's gonna piss people off, but Gojo's probably dead. I'm just keep it real. But I mean, he had a crazy last 12, 15 chapters. He was just going nuts. Come on, guys. Like, wait, chapter's not over. I gotta do one thing. Alright. So we have the somber moment. You have the explanation. We're like, oh, how could this happen? Gege, no. But then I was like, but people didn't understand. And what I've been telling people occasionally is, I actually don't really care about the ending of this fight. Not to say it's not cool, not to say it's not emotional, all that stuff. Absolutely. But what people don't understand is that I already knew Gojo was gonna die from the beginning of the fight. That wasn't my concern about who was gonna win the fight. My concern was about my actual goats. Gojo, Gokuna, no. Big Yuta. Boxer Yuji. Demon King Yuji. The one who left it all behind, Maki. Restless Gambler Hakari. Smoke Demon Hajime Kashimo. Them's my goats. Speaking of my goats, Smoke Demons. He's inbound like a lightning bolt, but sparing no time to mourn the death of Gojo Satoru. He launches onto the battlefield. Kashimo Hajime, the god of lightning. He's ready to box. End of chapter. My man's ready to box. He didn't give a fuck, and I don't either. It's real boxing time, right? Gojo was cool. I was hyped. I'm trying to see my niggas run right through this shit right now. Shit is up. Spin back. I need my students to spin back. That's what I'm excited for. Gojo died. Everybody's tight. But I don't want Byakuyo treatment. Alright? I don't want niggas to complain a bunch. Gojo come back and you don't do shit. I don't want Gojo to come back and make the story easy. I don't want that shit to happen. Gojo needed to die. I don't think that there was any universe where anybody was going to be happy about Gojo dying. Even me. Alright? You think I'm okay with this. Like I said, I'm not upset about it because I didn't expect Gojo to live anyway. So I knew eventually he was going to die. Presumably this chapter / maybe the next chapter if the fight hadn't kept going. But I didn't think he was going to live. So the fact that, basically Sukuna is able to pull off this ability is fine with me. And also I would like to say, this, though it is it's complicated. It's a complicated thing, but the gist of it is Sukuna basically copied a, not curse technique, but copied a technique for slashing. That's all he did. And Sukuna does have feats / has been shown to be able to copy techniques on the fly. Example, reverse curse technique in your brain so that you can bring back your burnt out technique. presumably, and the way it's kind of shown off is that Gojo figured that out on his personal time, brought that into the fight. Sukuna's side did that shit himself. Kenjaku split Sukuna's soul into a bunch of fingers. That nigga was dead. Well, his soul for like thousands of years. He gets put in one body. He never gets a chance to try out the soul thing. He does it one time. After having it done to him, seeing it one time, he figures it out on the spot, does it flawlessly. It is not impossible to believe that he is able to manipulate his actual technique in a way to be able to do something like this. It is not impossible. It is not impossible. We already know that interpreting your curse technique does your interpretation of your curse technique and what you believe is possible with it does influence the power or less power that you have with the technique. So it is not an asshole to say that Sukuna bet on the fact that Mahoraga would be able to figure out a way for him to use his technique to cut through infinity on his own, saw Mahoraga do it, and then jacked that idea off his ass and used it himself. That's not an asshole. I think that's fine. Again, if you don't like the idea of like, oh, Sukuna didn't hint at the fact that he could do this before, therefore meaning that he shouldn't have been able to do it, that's an asshole. If that's how you feel as an asshole, that's fine. That I guess is an asshole. But the things are there. I'll probably make another video about that specifically later, but I think it's fine. I genuinely think it's perfectly fine. I think it's okay. Not seeing Gojo get cut. Once again, seeing it in the whole chapter, I will say it would have been cool as fuck to like see, like maybe at like the very first panel, shing, like the line with the dark background, the line, then flashback thing, whatever. It would have been cool as fuck. I'm not gonna lie, but is it necessary? No, I genuinely don't think it's necessary. Anybody who feels like, oh, we missed out, we didn't miss anything. We didn't miss anything. There was not a fight here. The way this is presented, there was no interaction between these guys. Basically, Gojo felt secure. He was like, hey, I got your ass. You're checkmated. And Sukuna was like, no, you. Nuh-uh. And then slice his ass. Slice the fuck out. That was it. So, take that as you will. That one I will definitely give you. This being an asshole, I don't think so. But, feeling like, oh, I would have liked to have seen Gojo's final moments. I respect it. I do appreciate the memory section, but the soul section where everybody's talking, I thought that was nice. Like I said, I've been waiting for this part for a very long time, and I'm here to see it. Alright, YUTA is my actual goal. Like, objectively, YUTA is my top dog. I want to see YUTA run right through this shit. I know he's about to pop off. Alright, like Kashimo do his thing. I want to see him do his thing too. YUTA, that's my goat right there. That's that's where my stocks really lie. Alright, I was defending Sukuna because I was like, Sukuna's just objectively not gonna die. But now, all bets are off. That nigga could die right now. Well, not right now. I want to see him get like the full work in. I want to see them jump the fuck out of Sukuna. But yeah. With that all being said, I'll probably save more of my comments. I mean, there's a lot I could talk about. But for now, I think that's where we will end this video. Thank you for watching. Chapter 236 is peak. And peaks will only get higher from here. Thank you for watching. Peace.
Thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe and watch the videos on the right. Other than that, the doc is out. Bye.